One Viking sword held a secret Europe could not crack for centuries. In 1963, a blade is dredged from a German river. Its edge stays keen after 1,000 years underwater. Down the middle runs a strange inscribed name. The letters spell a single word: Ulfberhrt. Nobody alive knows who Ulfbert really was, yet his name marks blades that decided who lived or died. Around 170 of these swords survive today. Many fell into rivers, graves, and cold peat bogs. Each marked a warrior, most of whom never returned. Warriors were buried holding them as a prized possession. A single Ulfberht cost more than an entire farm. Some passed to sons whose fathers had died in battle. For 80 years, collectors and museums have chased them. No other medieval steel comes close to their purity. Ordinary blades of that age were brittle and got men killed. A lesser blade could snap and get its owner killed. The Ulfberht blades bent, sprang back, and refused to break. A warrior who lost this blade had lost everything. So how does a Viking-age smith make such steel? The answer starts with a furnace and a fierce fire. Iron ore begins as dull red rock dug from the earth. Medieval Europe smelted its iron in a low clay furnace. The furnace burned charcoal to free iron from the stone. That furnace never grew hot enough to melt the metal. The iron emerged as a spongy, dirty gray lump. Trapped inside, brittle slag doomed the blade to fail. Slag left a blade weak, and it shattered when it fell. A whole village might toil a week for one bloom. Smiths hammered for 10 hours just to beat the filth out. Even then, hidden flaws doomed the blade in battle. Their best blades bent, failed, and got soldiers killed. The real difference was not skill, but the raw material. The Ulfberht steel had almost none of that slag. Carbon is what turns soft iron into hard steel. Too little carbon, and the blade bends, and its owner is killed. Too much carbon, and the whole blade is destroyed. It held nearly 1% carbon, triple the usual amount. The Ulfberht smiths struck that narrow balance perfectly. That richer carbon made it both hard and springy. Such steel can only form when iron fully melts. Melting iron demands heat near 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. European furnaces came nowhere near that ferocious heat. By every rule of the day, this steel was impossible. And yet the finished swords plainly, stubbornly exist. For 800 years, no European smith could copy them. Europe only matched this steel in the 1850s. That is nearly a whole millennium too late. Modern furnaces finally reached those temperatures in the 1740s. Modern smiths have tried to rebuild an Ulfberht by hand. Even with modern tools, the work nearly beat them. In 2012, a famous experiment rebuilt the sword on film. One master spent days coaxing his fire white hot. He admitted one slip would leave the blade destroyed. A tiny mistake would have ruined weeks of labor. He sealed iron and glass together inside a crucible. The glass pulled the last impurities up and away. Only then did truly pure liquid steel appear. He poured it, folded it, and forged a single blade. The result rang clear and its bright edge held. It proved the old smiths were not using magic. They were using a recipe most of Europe never had. But that raises an even stranger question. Where did a northern smith even get such steel? The armorer Alan Williams hunted the answer in the metal. At the Wallace collection, he read the metal's fingerprint. The Ulfberht fingerprint does not match European ore. The fingerprint matches ore from distant Asian mines. Persian crucible works ran centuries before the Vikings sailed. Chemists found manganese and trace metals unknown in Europe. Such a signature could only come from Eastern mines. Its trace elements point thousands of miles to the east. There, in Central Asia, smiths already melted iron whole. They fired sealed crucibles for days on end. The iron inside melted into flawless liquid steel. It cooled into dense cakes of gleaming crucible steel. This was the legendary metal later called woots. Crucible steel forms a pattern no European forge could fake. Sealed for 3 days, carbon spreads evenly through the iron. Slow cooling grows tiny crystals that lock the edge hard. No hammer alone could ever mix carbon so evenly. One flawed heat left a month of ore ruined. The recipe balanced iron, charcoal, and green glass, just so. Get the mixture wrong, and the whole batch was destroyed. But Central Asia sits impossibly far from the cold north. So how did its steel reach a Viking anvil? The Vikings had carved a river highway to the east. They rode the Volga down toward the Caspian Sea. The route ran nearly 2,000 winding, dangerous miles. It linked frozen fjords to sun-baked desert cities. They reached crowded markets near the Caspian shore. There, Persian traders dealt in the finest steel. Baghdad and beyond fed steel into this vast network. Captives were traded east and never seen again. Buried hoards of Islamic silver prove the route was real. A single ingot could change hands 12 times. By the time it reached the north, many carriers had died. Along that same road, steel ingots could ride north. A Frankish smith then forged that steel into a blade. One sword, built from 3 far-apart worlds at once. Merchants carried the ingots upriver, packed tight in wax. Each cake was small, dense, and worth a fortune in silver. 1,000 miles of river stood between mine and forge. The Vikings called Rus rode these waters for the trade. When the eastern silver failed, the whole route collapsed. Then war destroyed the trade, and the steel stopped coming. Trade routes collapsed, and the silver rivers ran dry. The supply of true crucible steel quietly vanished. But by now, the name Ulfberht was far too famous. By the year 1000, rival smiths forged cheap imitations. They stamped that proud name onto inferior steel. These fakes reveal the first known brand war in steel. The real mark sets its 2 crosses in one exact pattern. The forgers botched the name, and buyers died for it. A single misplaced cross betrays a counterfeit at a glance. Most surviving Ulfberht swords are outright counterfeits. The forgers copied the name, but never the hidden recipe. They could steal the letters, never the Eastern steel. A real Ulfberht rang. A fake landed dead and dull. In the year 950, buyers who trusted a fake often died. Some counterfeits even spelled the sacred name wrong. Trusting the wrong blade could get a warrior killed. The genuine mark became the most copied brand of its age. Smiths guarded the recipe, and rivals died to steal it. Archaeologists now sort the real swords from the fakes. Barely 1 in 10 proved to be the genuine article. Inside, the fakes were brittle iron that got men killed. In battle, a fake could snap and doom its owner. The genuine mark meant life. A fake meant death. Buyers still paid a fortune for the genuine mark. So the counterfeits spread, and men died, holding them. This is trademark piracy. 800 years too early. Still, the deepest question refuses to be answered. Who was the Ulfberht whose name is on every hilt? The name is Frankish, from the Rhineland River workshops. But the swords were made for nearly 200 years. That is far longer than any single human life. So Ulfberht was never one man, but a brand. A workshop name handed down and guarded like treasure. The crosses hint at a forge tied to the church. Frankish kings even banned selling such swords north. Yet somehow, the blades reached the Vikings anyway. Europe's finest weapon was, in large part, smuggled. Every fresh clue only widens the surrounding mystery. We can measure this steel to 1 part in 1,000. We can trace the ore across a whole continent. For 800 years, the secret slept locked in the East. Only chemistry, centuries later, finally read the answer. A Stone Age process delivered a near-modern result. Even 21st century engineers cannot fully explain them, but we still cannot name the hands that forged it. History keeps the name, but never once the face. The maker signed his work, then vanished from history. A full 1,000 years on, the blade still outshines its age, pulled from the mud, sharper than it had any right to be. Steel that should not exist, yet undeniably does. That is the enduring riddle of the Ulfberht swords. If lost and impossible knowledge grips you, follow along. Each day, we open one more object that should not be. Tomorrow, the hill in Java, hiding chambers older than civilization itself.